Welcome back, everybody. Today is New York Times best-selling author and one of the original castmates of VH1's hit series Mob Wives, the lovely Karen Gravano. Hi, Karen. Thank you so much. I'm doing well, thank you.
I love when everyone says New York Times bestseller.
Well, you are right there on the top, and number 18 nonetheless. Congratulations.
I'm so proud of it.
So what is that like, to be an accomplished author and to be on the New York Times best-selling list and be number 18?
You know, I think for me, and the reason why I am so proud of it is because I got such a hard time when I said I was going to do my book. A lot of people felt I shouldn't tell my story. There are people that actually tried to stop me and prevent me from profiting off of it because they thought it was going to be a mob book. You know, they thought I was going to come out and try to basically profit off my father's crimes. And at the end of the day, I'm not a gangster. I'm not my father. But I do have a life. And I do have something that I went through. And I do have a story that I want to share with people. And there's a message in this book. And it's not about being a gangster and glorifying it. It's about going through struggles, and really it's a family struggle. It's about coming to terms with who I am, who my father is, accepting that, and realizing, listen, even though being a gangster is something that's glorified, and I want to say in the media and in Hollywood, but at home it's not all that, you know, there's not a lot of glory in it. There's a lot of downside, there's a lot of heartache, and there's a lot of pain, but there's also family and a struggle and us protecting each other and coming together and moving past it. So right. I am extremely proud of my book. You know, I felt like I just went up against all odds. People felt I shouldn't told my story. I did, and it was very well received. So
as you were writing it, I mean, did you kind of like have like weights lifted off of your shoulders? Was there anything that you couldn't talk about that you talked about in this book that it just felt so good to get it out?
Yes, you know, I think no one's ever really heard my version of the story, and especially a lot of stuff that I went through in Arizona. I did get in trouble. I was arrested for selling drugs. I did participate in illegal activities, and I think people just viewed me as, oh, she's a bad person. She's trying to be in her father's footsteps, but there were reasons why that happened. And for me, it was because I didn't accept myself. Once my father cooperated, I was kind of like outcast from my own communities, and, you know, I felt like an outsider. So I wanted to be bad to regain respect. And, you know, I know that's hard for people to understand, but in the lifestyle that I grew up in, it was, if you're bad, you're respected. You know, the badder you are, the more you're respected. My father was the underboss of the most powerful crime family, and I was welcome in everyone's house for Christmas. I was showered with gifts. I would go to restaurants and didn't have to pay a bill. So it seemed like the more bad my father was, the better we were treated. So when I was outcast, it was like almost, I wanted to distance myself so much from his decision of cooperating that I wanted to be bad because I wanted to gain acceptance. And not only in my own community, but I also felt like society judged him. You know, here's John Gotti, he's the Dapper Don, the king of New York. People were throwing parties and praising him, and here's Sammy, the king rat. And, you know, everything that was written about my father was derogatory. So I wanted to be bad, you know, and I think that people just viewed me as a bad person, but I made those decisions based upon insecurity, and I think I've come to terms with who I am. I don't care what people think about me. I don't care what people think about my father. I know what it is, and, you know, I accept the mistakes and choices I made that are my mistakes and choices, and I move past it.
Absolutely.
So.
And just going back, I mean, with John Gotti, you often referred to him as like Uncle John,
yes.
so to speak, growing up. And so what was your reaction when your father actually cooperated in helping bringing him down?
I was devastated. You know, my whole life I was taught you don't rat, you don't snitch. So when he was doing that, I didn't understand. I was confused. Listen, I was a kid. I didn't understand that world. I didn't understand his decisions at the time. I do now. And listen, I'm not saying I think, you know, if you get arrested, rat. I don't absolutely believe that at all. But I do understand that my father felt like he was betrayed by John Gotti. He listened to the tapes. And, you know, he did go to fight his case. He was in prison for a year. John was trying to control the defense and all this other stuff, and I think at that point he just said, screw it, you know, I just want out. And it wasn't that he did it because he cared what other people thought. That was his decision. That's what he stood behind, and I have to respect him for making that choice. You know, my father's one of those people that didn't become a gangster because he wanted people to like him. It's not the best career, you know what I mean? He was involved in murders. So at that point he's like, I make choices based upon what I feel is good in my heart and right for me, and a lot of them were wrong choices. This is something I feel like I have to do, and it could be a wrong choice, but it's a right choice for me.
Did he ever discuss with you why he chose to lead that lifestyle?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he felt that, listen, he was loyal to Cosa Nostra, you know, and he felt that's what it's called, you know, it's this thing of ours, and he was loyal to that, and he felt that after they got arrested, you know, he heard the tapes, They're the infamous Gotti tapes, and John was bad-mouthing him. You know, he was basically talking about my father murdering people and trying to control the family, and my father felt that that wasn't the case at all. My father was involved in those murders, but on orders of John. So my father felt like I was loyal to you, you know, and you were the boss, I was your pit bull. You barked, you know, and I bit. And when he heard those tapes, he was mad, you know, and he went to prison, and, you know, he told me my first thought was really I should kill him because he betrayed me. But I was just so sick of that after thinking about it, I didn't want this life for my kids anymore. I was just done. So ultimately, I decided to cooperate.
Did it strain your relationship with him?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't understand it. I mean, I didn't know anything about that world. It was like I was learning it as everyone else. You know, my life was unfolding in the news media. Here's, you know, Sammy the Bull, he's a gangster. Oh, they did this. They extorted people. They ran the unions. They basically controlled New York in construction. So I didn't know any of that. I mean, I thought my father's jobs were, I seen the trucks going out every day. To me, it was real. I didn't realize the power behind the mob that controlled that.
Wow. So how old were you when you found out what your father did for work?
I was probably as young as 10 years old, and I was playing at my friend's house, and she lived across from Paul Castellano, and we were playing on the front lawn, and she goes, see that house over there? My parents say a big gangster lived there. And I was like, oh, it's Paul's house. I was there a couple of times with my father, and I thought, wow, if Paul's a gangster, then maybe my father's a gangster too. And I related it as a good thing. You know, I was 10. I looked at it as, oh, a gangster has a nice house.
It's really cool.
Yeah,
you know,
you can go in there, and, you know, he had a maid, and his wife was very warm and loving, went into the kitchen. I didn't realize a gangster was a criminal. So it was probably around 16 that I realized all the signs of what I was seeing in my childhood were true. And that was when the Paul Castellano hit aired on the news, and basically it kind of confirmed a lot of things in my head, because when I was younger than that also, there was a murder outside my father's nightclub, and I seen my father leave with a gun. The next morning I got up, and the guy that was buying his nightclub was murdered outside, and I knew my father had issues with the guy. So for a minute I thought my father could have done this, but then he came in the kitchen, he's acting cool, calm, collect. So as a child, when you look at your parent and they're not nervous, you would think if someone murdered someone, they'd be like never coming home, they'd be in hiding, they'd be a wreck, like people you see on TV, that if, you know, you're watching that and someone gets murdered. And
Right.
But it wasn't like that at all. It was very normal. So I never felt at that point he probably didn't do it, and I never questioned it again. And then, you know, after the Castellano hit, I realized that this was something bigger. I realized that, you know, everything that my father probably was doing and the gangster and all that was something bad.
Were you ever afraid as a child?
No.
No.
No, I wasn't at all. I mean, I felt very protected. My father had a lot of people around us, which weren't just like, you know, it wasn't like, oh, he had his crew and they worked with him. Those were my family, like my uncle, and these men became uncles to me. So I realized that they were tough, powerful men, and I felt very protected.
But they were still family men. Like your
Yes.
father was still a family man, and what was your relationship like with him?
You know, it's funny because still to this day, I mean, he told me, just actually I went to go visit him this weekend, and he's like, you're probably the only person in the whole entire world still to now that could tell me off. But, you know, he's my father. He's my best friend. You know, he was there if I needed anything, and he's one of those fathers, like, come home, like, hey, how's your day? Let's talk about it. He was very interactive with me and my brother. It wasn't just, you know, he went out of the house and he did this stuff and he came home, and he was very close. On the weekends, he did everything to get us away from that life. He bought a farm. We would go, I remember just times it would be Sunday, and he'd be like, let's jump in the car. Where are we going? I don't know. We'd wind up in Great Adventure. We'd wind up in the Bronx Zoo. It's just whatever happened. He was very family-oriented man, and even the men in his crew, like, they came over, but he encouraged them to bring their family. Like, we had a farm, and all of them were up there, but their families had to come. It wasn't no mob activities. Actually, he made it a very strict rule that nothing illegal was to be talked about on that farm. It was strictly family, and that's what I remember, because that's, you know, where I was part of the family, so that's what I seen.
Absolutely. So it's a fascinating book. I mean, what was it like for you that first time, as you were describing in your prologue, actually, of driving up and seeing those cement walls to visit him for the first time?
Well, my father did go to prison, and then he came home and went back, and it was a couple years that I didn't see him, and I took my daughter and my nephew. And I think I was more nervous about how the kids were going to react, because they didn't grow up in that world. They didn't understand it. They didn't see my father and these men, you know, as loving family members. My daughter and my nephew really only know him as a criminal from behind bars. So I was more nervous on how they were going to react. I wanted them to love him like I did.
Right.
So, it's very cold. Drive into a prison, you walk in, it's steel gates. It's a very hard environment to leave someone you love. But the reality is, if someone does something wrong in life, that's where they end up. So you have to accept that part of it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, and now Mob Wives is one of the hits series on VH1. I mean, what does he think about you being in this show and being a part of it?
It's something hard for him to swallow. I mean, I think the whole thing, basically, especially with the name Mob Wives, he felt like that's the men's life. Why are you using that word? And he gets it. He's a very smart man, and he realizes mob is something that's very intriguing. And, when we sold the show, it was basically, I was the kind of, throw the hook out there and wheel him in. The name Gravano, it holds a lot of weight in that world. So, it's something that's very marketable. So he got it. He just doesn't like a lot of the fighting, and he definitely doesn't like if we have to talk about men's business. He likes that we talk about family. And for him, it's more like, why can't they show you in the light that you are? You're very strong-willed. You have a huge heart. And you're very focused. And I think a lot of it is, that's how he sees me. But the reality is reality TV. They want the drama. So
of course they do.
We have to kick the out of each other every now and then.
And that has happened.
Yes.
Season 3 has been absolutely crazy, speaking of Mob Wives. So let's talk about that. What are some of your most memorable crazy moments that have been on the show this season?
Probably when I went to Arizona to catch my daughter's father.
In the act of being with another woman. As any normal woman would do.
Yes. The thing about him is it's a very complicated situation because I do love him, and he also went to prison for a long time in our relationship. He went 8.5 years, came out and went back for 2. So altogether, 10.5 years in prison. So it's hard to get intimate with someone again. And that was a big thing for us, I don't mean intimate sexually, and just close your eyes and block it out. No, I mean intimate as far as just being able to live together. I think we learned how to love each other, but from a distance. And that's something that prison does, is when someone's in jail for, that long of a time, I go there, we can't touch each other. We don't kiss. So I've learned how to be that way with him. It became normal. So when he came home, it was like, not that he was in prison because there were no bars, but it's like, it was no affection, no love. So we do love each other, but we just decided to go our separate ways. But we have a respect. So it was hard, and I think he kind of tiptoed around the situation about telling me about the girl. And I was upset about it, but after we talked about it, and I understand why, and he's with the girl, he's happy. And I'm happy for him because he's my daughter's father, and if I want to see any man successful, it's my child's father. I want her to look at her father and feel like I love him as much as I love my father, even with all the mistakes. So it's something that I really I was going to kill him though, I ain't going to lie, at that one point when I found out. I was a little angry when I got there, and then I had Ramona, she amped me up the whole way, and I kept going, I don't want to, but then I was thinking about it, so it was a crazy experience, but it was my best moment in season, because I think for me it was happening, and that was the first time. Because everyone was like, did you meet the girl prior? She was so cold. And in defense of her, that was the first time we met. There were cameras around. I mean, she's never been on television. So she was extremely standoffish and cold. So it intensified the whole situation. I'm like, trying to be normal for television. But then there were things that I wanted to say. And it was just like a weird situation. And then Ramona grilled the poor girl. And I know that was going to happen because she's just very protective of me. So
we love Ramona too.
Love Ramona, yeah, she always has my back. But thank God we were able to walk away from it, and the girl's a great girl, and I'm glad that he has picked someone like her to be in my daughter's life.
So really, you're just, how do I want to say it? Your relationship status with him is really just friendly for the sake of your daughter.
Yes, and I have a respect for him, and we would always probably remain friends even if we didn't have a child. I'm very happy he got his life on the right track. He's doing excellent in work. It's very hard. I think that he can almost be like a role model for when people get out of jail. I mean, he screwed up a couple of times, so he went once, got out, went back, got out, went back, and now finally, thank the Lord, he's on the right track. But it's hard work, and I think a lot of people don't understand that, is when a person does get out of prison, it's like everything's set up for you to fail. You don't have a license, you're a convicted felon, you go on a job interview, it's very frustrating, and that's why a lot of men do wind up back in prison. But I think the biggest struggle is how to stay focused, and it took him 3 times, but he's focused and he's doing great. He's He's very successful right now. So actually, I'm mad I kicked him to the curb. I'm only kidding.
Well, there is another scene in season 3 of Mob Wives that has just passed, actually. The turf war with Love. Let's talk about that.
Yes, yes.
You're smiling already.
Love is just a very emotional person. So it's hard for her to be able to control her emotions. And, in that situation when Drita had her birthday party and Carla was there, I knew they had to talk because I know how Love is.
I'm playing the scene in my head.
If they don't talk, she might think that Carla's being rude, this, that, and it might escalate. So I was thinking, okay, let me get them to talk now before it escalates. And unfortunately, as soon as I brought Carla over, Love just popped her, which I was like, why did you do that? It almost looked like I set her up.
Right.
And I know, from what you guys see on the television, it does look like that. But there was days and days and days of me like, just talk to her, just talk to her, just talk to her. Don't let it go that far. Just, And listen, if you want to tell her how it is, she's going to back down. She won't back down. I'll say one thing about Carla is she's like a little pit bull. That boy just it makes anyone start wanting to rip their hair out or beat you up. But and I have to respect Carla for that, you know what I mean? She stands up for herself, but she's not going to be the first one to throw a punch or do anything. So it could have been an argument. I wish that Love was able to just pull it back a notch, and maybe she still would have been on the show. I think it's unfortunate.
So this was really her first and only season.
Yes,
of Mob Wives.
it will be her only season. And I just think it was unfortunate. But, hey, it is what it is. That was their decision. So.
Right. And here is a pretty unique behind-the-scenes question because, in show business, people don't see it right now, but we're surrounded by cameras, the mics overhead.
Right.
That's what goes on your show as well because it is reality, and people don't see it. So when you are in these physical altercation scenes and you're beating the crap out of each other, what did the guys do? What does the crew do?
Oh, they just run with... I took one cameraman, that big fight in season 2 with Drita, and me and Ramona were there, and I was running because I thought Ramona's got her mouth. It was so in the moment, I thought she split her mouth open. So the camera guy's in my face. I just picked him up, flung him across the floor. He was going to sue me. I don't know. He wound up going to another show and leaving Mob Wives after that, and I got reprimanded that I can't touch the crew, which I love. But it's you're in the crossfire. If you guys are filming, then put the camera over here. If you can't run in my face.
You're filming Mob Wives. There's certain things you just need to be accustomed to, right?
So they're hang on. And it's so funny? The whole crew will be like, uh-oh, here she goes. They say, they'll tell us, there goes Karen's side eye, because I guess I have this famous eye. If I don't like someone, I go like this with my head or whatever. So they're like, uh-oh, there goes the eye. So they're all on point. And, they got to know us, and they know the girls and know our personalities. And, So
they know where to stand back, too.
Yeah, stand back. They, and if all else fails, they're in it with us. And I think, that night with Love, there was a lot of security there, so they jumped in. I think they started to get wise now. In season 1 and 2, we actually had security when the cameras weren't rolling, just showing up on scenes because me and Drita probably really were going to kill each other. But we moved past that. We're in a very good place. We realized we're mothers, and we did have a friendship.
Right. But I think you're more closer with Ramona. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely
closest with Ramona. She's my childhood friend. We grew up. Her mother was pregnant when my mother was pregnant at the same time. Mm-hmm. She's older than me, by the way, by 2 months, and I love to tell people that. And she always gets mad because anytime I do an interview, I tell my real age.
I'm thinking in my head what she's saying right now as she's watching this.
Yeah, she's like, why do you tell everyone your real age? I'm 41. Ramona, you're 41 too. 2 months older than me.
And we were talking before. I said she looks like she's about 35 when you were getting your hair and makeup done over there.
No, you said 20. You didn't sound.
You're right.
35. I'll go with that.
But fantastic, though. So, Mob Wives is renewed for a 4th season.
Yes, it is.
Are you renewed as well? Fans want to know.
Yes. I haven't, it's still up in the air. I really can't disclose much of what's going on right now with season 4. I just feel for me, I have such a big story, and I really never wanted to be stuck on a Mob Wives. And not that I'm stuck. I mean, Mob Wives has been a great springboard and everything, and I love the girls. I love the show. I love everything. So, that would hold me. But I have so many other projects that I am working on. And I don't want to just be, kind of tied into Mob Wives for so long. I mean, I'm always going to be a mob daughter, so that's... And Mob,
that's the book.
Yes.
It's a bestseller.
Yes. But my father is coming home soon, and I feel like I have other things that I want to start really working on to be able to prepare for him to come home.
Right.
Because, listen, at the end of the day, he did 20 years in prison. I'm going to come home. I want him to be in a position to where he feels, because, he's a man. Even now in prison, he don't like me to send him commissary, and, he's hard to be able to have someone to take care of him. So I want him to be able to be in a position, which, listen, people are already, writing to him about his story and wanting to do interviews, and he'll come out and probably be more famous than I could ever even imagine. I mean, he probably is already more famous than I am, but anyway, I really want to work on things that I feel are going to be concrete and help my family. And hey, Mob Wives season 4 maybe something just in talks, and kind of keeping my options open right now.
Absolutely, good for you. Well, in addition to being part of Mob Wives, having your bestseller out on the market, you've also done many other projects in the past too. You've owned a salon when you were in Arizona.
Yes,
You're very much into skincare as well. And in fact, we have something new today, which is our street cam. We have a question on the street right now. Let's take a look at that.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Fernandez reporting for What's Happening in the Hamptons. I'm here with Minnie, a green makeup artist here in Manhattan. Minnie, do you have a question for Mob Wives Karen Gravano?
Yes, I do. I hear that she's a licensed esthetician, and I would like to know what kind of skincare product she uses to achieve that flawless, beautiful skin.
That's a great question. Back to you, Jason.
Being an esthetician is kind of like a gift and a curse, because I am so knowledgeable about skin, and there's always these new products, and I have all this access to research. I basically became like a product whore, I guess I want to call it. I like to try every product. And you know what? I think that if there's certain ingredient in this product that I like, and then something in this, but I really try everything. And especially like that my clients would come in and say, hey, I've used this product, I love it. Yeah, I basically have a million products under my counter, from professional to right down to go to CVS and pick this up. So to answer that question, I use everything.
So while you were living in Arizona, you did have your own spa, you were doing products, and so when did you decide to come back to Staten Island after that?
It kind of like all clicked at the same time. The economy in Arizona kind of was plunging, and people didn't spend enough money on the extracurricular activities. So I was downsizing the spa, and Jennifer and I started talking. I was working on my book. I had my book deal. I actually had a movie deal prior to Mob Wives, which I still have. I'm shopping around. We have a script, but I really am so proud of my book, and I'm happy with this, that I want to focus more on the life of my book, selling the life rights to my book as opposed to the script. So anyway, I was working on that, and we just started talking, and she was like, hey, I'm casting this show. It's about women that their husbands went to prison and all this stuff. So I had come back to talk to her and just listening to what she had to say. And at the time, they started convincing me that I should be on the show. And then the show went from, when I was casted, Prison Wives to Mob Wives. And at that point it was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be on this show. I don't want to bring up everything that had happened. But we talked about it, and it was about the struggles that the women went through, and it was about picking up your life and rebuilding. And I did that. I had a spa. I was very successful. I was in the process of writing a book, so she thought I'd be like the key character to come back and kind of just show that no matter what you go through in life, you can move on, you can do things. And I think for so many people, you think like, oh, we grew up in this life, we're so stereotyped to either own a restaurant or be in this, and I went away, I had a spa, I did different things.
So your book has actually been in production longer than Mob Wives, the TV show, has.
Yeah, well, we didn't start writing it because actually Lisa Politzer is here in New York, so she co-wrote the book with me. Basically, we sat there and did word for word, and she was an amazing writer. She really just captured my story in my voice, and that's what we wanted to do. So when I had known that I was coming back for the show, we kind of put it off a little while because I was like, let's just do it when I'm in New York. So I was coming back to do the book first,
right?
And it just kind of all coincided. So it was.
What made you want to publish your story now at this stage in your life?
I think there was so many different stories out there, and I just felt like I really understand what I went through. I really have gained acceptance of who I am. I don't care what people think about me. I don't care. Even coming back to Mob Wives, like, oh, she's Sammy's daughter, and I'm the one that had the most baggage. I had to overcome that my father was a gangster. I had to overcome that he was involved in 19 murders. I had to overcome the fact that people call him a rat, and people judge me like, oh, she's a rat. How am I a rat? I never got arrested. I never cooperated.
Yeah.
And that, when I was younger, made me act a certain way, and now that's something that only makes me stronger. I look back and I'm like, all these people that try to put me down, all these people that try to criticize me for who my father is, that makes me get up every day and keep pushing forward and make me want to be successful, makes me want to prove, like, you can't just judge a person because of what you think they are or what you think they were brought up in. Listen, if you don't like me because you can't stand me on Mob Wives, I accept that. You know what I mean? I'm sure a lot of people don't like me, and I'm sure there's a lot of people after meeting me love me. So I'm confident, and I just felt it was time for me to tell.
I'm one of those people that love you after meeting you now.
I love you too. No, but I just think that you know, it's just something I wanted to tell. And I think the more people were like, no, you can't do that, made me push harder. And there is a message in my book. No matter what you go through in life, you can push past it and you can make people think differently and you can be successful.
I think maybe people just misinterpreted it. I
Yes.
feel like maybe this was you giving up mob secrets, but it's not. It's about
Right.
you growing up as the daughter of a big-time
Right.
gangster.
Exactly.
And what you actually went through.
Right.
So, wow. Fascinating book. Karen, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Again,
me.
New York Times best-selling author Karen Gravano of Mob Daughter. Pick it up pretty much anywhere, including Amazon.com.
Right.
Karen, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Hopefully
me.
we'll see you on 4th season of Mob Wives,
Yes.
premiering very soon. Thank you so much at home for watching. As always, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.